Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Well, alrighty there, folks. It's your host, Sean, at the Bar podcast. We have bellied up to the bar today, and I'm trying to fix my microphone, so hopefully it sounds better. Didn't realize my mic wasn't on. What's up there, Stacy, over on Instagram? Everybody's starting to show up here. But we have bellied up to the bar today. I promise you I will do my best not to harass our guest about Louisiana seafood and how nothing should ever be boiled and only steamed. That is the only way to eat seafood, but we'll do our best to not harass him too much. But joining us, but he's actually in one of the food cities I want to go to try one of my foods that I really am very interested in, because I've never had Vietnamese and I've had Cajun, so I'd love to have Cajun. It just sounds amazing. So joining us from Houston, it's Mr. Greg Davis.
Hey, Sean, how are you? Good to be here, man. Nice to see you.
And everything. I mean, not too shabby.
Yeah, I had no idea you were such a restaurant and kind of food fan.
Oh, dude, there's a little chubby kid that lives in my soul that just that's all he wants to do. My spirit animal so you know how people will be like, oh, my spirit animal is blah, blah, blah. So for the longest time, I thought it was Anthony Bourdain because I love Anthony Bourdain. And then I watched Phil Rosenthal, Somebody Feed Phil. If you've never watched that on Netflix, and I have determined that they are the yin and yang of the food world. Have you ever watched Phil?
Mm-mm. I never watch food shows.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting. I grew up in the restaurant business. My grandfather and Joe Rogers, the founder of Waffle House, were business partners in a company called the Tuttle House, and they separated. And from those two guys is just an incredible restaurant tree that includes, I think part of the, I don't know if the actual original Applebee's concept, but certainly when it was at W.R. Grace and the way that it scaled, cousins and people in my family were involved with that. I don't think anyone ever made any money. My dad did really well.
Really? That's a whole conversation.
I have a dog named Hash. And I was in the restaurant business for years with my brother. So that's a space I know real well, but I never watched, because I was in it and because I did it as a professional, I just never hung out and watched the food shows. I watched Emerald early on.
But so you know what? That gets right into what we're going to be talking about today, folks, is how to become an entrepreneur. That is an entrepreneurial food space that, to me, a lot of people want to get into. They really want to become restaurateurs, or they think they can open, but they don't understand. To me, it's and I think this will make sense to you, Greg. It's a perishable product industry that you really have to understand that space. And that's what we're talking today, folks, is how to become an entrepreneur. What is an entrepreneur? How to set your networks up, and what is the value of a network to an entrepreneur? So we're going to be getting in all those things. So make sure you got your questions together. For those of you that are already joining us, make sure you're liking, sharing this, sending it to all the spaces that you have, all the groups you're part of. That's how this thing grows. That's how Greg's message gets out. That's how my message gets out. That's how more people know about what we're talking about. So like, share, do all those things. It's greatly appreciated every single time. See, even my Aunt Eileen already gave you a like, and she's in Montana. See,
nice.
You're making it to Montana already.
Right on. Love it.
But let's go ahead and get some house cleaning done. As always, folks, over my right shoulder, we got the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you've got something you're supporting, maybe you have a restaurant and you've got a sticker for it. Like our buddy Sean, who's got Cali Barbecue, and you've got a sticker. Send it out to me. You can reach me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, TikTok, our website, theabovethebarpodcast.com. All these different locations. You reach out to me. Tell me what you got going on. I'll give you the address where to send it. You send us out what you got happening there. You can't share StreamYard in group. You sure, Nate? Because I was just sharing it a minute ago. You might want to check that again. You're gonna make me check myself. Nate says you can't share StreamYard in groups anymore. Let's see here, Nate. Nate, I'm about to do it right now. Look, I'm gonna send it to Hardster Graphics. Check your private group. I just shared it to your group. Don't tell me I can't do something. See, this is a guy, Greg, that we play fantasy football together, and he always picks 3 kickers in the first 3 rounds. He doesn't know what he's doing. It drives me nuts. He's special though. You want to watch him really get mad? He's a big Steelers fan. Watch him get mad right now. He's gonna be like, "I hate you." He can get all mad.
I've never been to Pittsburgh. I was just telling someone that the other day. I've traveled a fair amount and pretty much have hit, all the cities over the last 25 years of moving around. I've never been to Pittsburgh, and every single person I talk to that's ever been to Pittsburgh tells me it's an awesome place.
Like, really, it's interesting. I mean, it's worth checking out. I've never been. Look at him. I do not do that, jackass. I hate Steelers. See, I told you. We're big Ravens fans, both of us. But nice. Yeah, definitely, folks. Give it all the likes and shares and everything. And Nate, he ran restaurants, and his grandfather was part of the birth of the Waffle House and everything. So you might as well stick it around. You'll know everything's going on. But as always, folks, we always got something going on. We got to talk about our sponsors. And look, Greg is a perfect person for the background for our sponsors because he has indoor shutters in his home. And I would almost be willing to bet, depending upon where you're at, are they Norman shutters? What do you got? Do you know which brand they are?
No, I don't. I think these are actually custom made right here.
Well, that's perfect because our sponsor is Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. They are your blinds, shades, shutters, any type of window treatments that you can imagine, all custom made for your home. The ones that Greg has, if you're watching our live, those would be an inside mount with a frame, probably a Z frame around them, and then with a center tilt. And Greg did the right thing. I'm very proud of Greg. He did not grab the tilt rod to open them. He actually grabbed the louver, which is very important. Did you know that, Greg?
No, I didn't. I had no idea my hygiene was so good, but thank you.
So the reasoning behind that is with those type of shutters, that tilt rod, they're all stapled in to the individual louvers.
Yeah.
And if you grab that tilt rod, you end up loosening up the staples. Whereas if you just grab the louver, it moves the rod and moves all the shutters. So you won't ever ruin your shutters that way.
Well, that's important to you, me, and my well-being with Mrs. Davis here.
See, there you go. So, and it's things like that, folks, that you can learn from the people at Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. Your number one location for window treatments in the capital region. If you let them know you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you a 15% discount off your entire order. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. All right. All that stuff's done, Greg.
You got your business taken care of?
Business is taken care of. Bills are paid.
Business is important.
It really is. I got to ask you a quick question before we get too far.
Yeah.
Now you're a Davis. You got any people in Tennessee?
Yes. So do you know where Elbridge, Dyersburg County is?
I don't. Is that East or West Tennessee?
No, it's Western Tennessee. And all my folks are from there, but they're Suttons, not Davises. The Davises were from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Okay. Because it was going to get scary there for a moment.
Oh, it gets scary fast. Every now and then I start looking a little deeper behind the surface and it gets ugly pretty fast. These were some awesome country folks. And
all my mother's people are Davises from East Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so we never made it over there. This was small town, Elbridge, Tennessee. It's a pretty
Elizabethton, Tennessee, outside of Bristol.
Yeah.
It's a little nowhere.
So this town was a farming town that grew up after the Second World War. And then as automation hit that, there's nothing there anymore. It's sad, but it was anyway, I had a great time there as a kid.
I
learned how to cook some things there. Those country folks know how to tie one on, man. The best place to find that is Atlanta, if you want to kind of tap into that, or Nashville.
Listen, you just said something. Look, folks, we're going to make a left turn into food right now. I don't care. I love food.
All right, bring it on.
Greg's, I tell people all the time, people like to talk about like New York City as a food city, Chicago, Miami, LA, all these different places. And I tell every single one of them, the best kept major food city in America is Atlanta. By far.
Yeah. So have you ever been to Nam Thai at Spring and 14th in Atlanta? It is
not.
I've hung out with a lot of people that spend a lot of time in restaurants. I thought it was the best place in the country of every place I had been, and I agree with you. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like Carver's grocery store, their motto, home cooking makes you good looking. And the other one is spooning leads to forking. And that was their t-shirt that they had. And I had back in a previous business, we had a data center out on the west side of Atlanta, and the meat and twos there, they were everywhere. So yeah, I agree. My daughter is actually moving to Atlanta in about 4 weeks. So
I tell you, the best slice of pizza by far I've ever had. And I've been to Chicago and had legit Chicago deep dish, like real deep dish, not like Uno's. Antico pizza in Antico.
Okay, so listen to this. This is kind of crazy. So what I do is, I work for private equity firms basically, and a lot of times I'll go in with the founder, or maybe I come in, after the founder. It's that thing sort of runs course. It's time for them to move on, or they don't want to run operations anyway. I was kind of in between deals, and I got hired by a group called Cap Street to run this business called Revention. It was a point of sale company, point of sale and payments, and it turned into Hunger Rush, and it ended up being a really cool deal. It's what I did right before I took over running Bigleaf. But the business was a point of sale system, and it was purely focused on independent pizza. And basically the value proposition was to give small pizza places a common, the ability to compete against Domino's, because if you didn't have online ordering and that kind of thing,
right,
you didn't have a chance. So like Chicago, JB Alberto's, that pizza is off the hook. It's so next level. And so, I made a lot of great friends in that business, so I probably shouldn't throw brands around, but we had all of the cool independent pizza. Revention had that business kind of locked up.
Have you had Antico?
So this is, and I was in the pizza business. First business I ever got into was Zippy's Pizza. Me, my dad, and my brother. Disaster, but we got into 5 or 6 units. So I love pizza, but I can't eat cheese anymore, which complete. And I'm a patty melt freak. I love Reubens. It's cruel, but
that really is.
I feel like shit when I do, and so it's just not worth it. So I know.
No. But then you have my other favorite food from Atlanta, then, which would be Atlanta's the first place I ever had a Scotch egg.
Oh, really?
Have you ever had a Scotch egg?
Oh, I've had an operation in the UK for several years. I had.
Greg, you're my new best friend. I'm telling you now.
Scotch eggs. I had a Scotch egg in Cardiff, Wales, which you have to be pretty bold to dive into one of those. But
now, what makes it different there? Like I mean,
everything's different in Cardiff. That's like having the difference between Eggs Benedict in Manhattan or Beaumont, Texas. It's
okay. It's just not the same animal.
It's not the same.
Interesting. Exactly. Well, and I will tell you, last thing about Atlanta food that I tell people all about is Atlanta has Chick-fil-A dwarf houses. And everybody loves to talk about Chick-fil-A, this, that, and the other. But until you've been to a Chick-fil-A dwarf house, you've never had Chick-fil-A.
Interesting. Well, I'm outgunned here. I don't even know what that is.
So those are the original Chick-fil-A's were called Chick-fil-A dwarf houses.
In the malls?
Standalone restaurants with a sit-down menu.
Oh, wow.
And that serves burgers.
Wow. I had no
and
idea.
they're only in Atlanta. There's a handful of them. and the front of the building is like, it looks like a cottage almost, and it has a little tiny dwarf door for the seven dwarfs to come through, and it's an operable door. The one I went to was in North Atlanta. I can't think of the area I was in. It was right by the hotel they had us in.
Alpharetta.
I'll have to look it up, but the Chick-fil-A Dwarf House, and what was the craziest is me and one of my closest friends, best friends, Terrell and I went, and the waitress said to us, I'll never forget this. She goes, we're sitting there. She goes, "Y'all want to try something good?" Now listen, when the waitress says, y'all want to try something good, you just go with it.
Yes.
And she brought out to us warm sweet potato souffle with a scoop of vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
Do you understand how amazing that is as just a thing? So yeah, we were in it might have been Forest. I'm pulling them up right now. I'm actually looking at it about the Dwarf House. I'll give you this real quick and then we'll move on. We'll get through this real quick. Since the late 1980s, the Dwarf House has provided customers with a historical perspective on Chick-fil-A, modeled after the founder Truett Cathy's first restaurant. The Dwarf House offers sit-down, counter and drive-through service for lunch and dinner. The restaurants offer typical Chick-fil-A menu, plus the specialty items including green beans, fried okra, cornbread, and chicken salad.
Yeah.
That's right on their website. So that is my plug for them. They're absolutely amazing. They're only in Atlanta. The one I think we went to, as I'm looking here, was the Pleasant Hill on Pleasant Hill Road, Duluth. That's where we
got you. I could throw down on some fried okra, if I'm honest. I can slay fried okra like Pez candy.
I love it. So let me make sure I got this. And folks, if you know me, I love talking about food. I'll make some left turns into a chow hound in a heartbeat. But so currently, let's see, I got this right, and my notes are on my left. I forgot to mention this, Greg. I keep all my notes on my left. So if I got some of my notes about you correct, 25 years as a senior executive, you've worked, you know how to scale businesses. You're very into fostering that culture side for safety and growth. What are some of the other things I've got my notes here? You're currently the CEO for Bigleaf Networks, which I want to get into that. And you're also, I love this one. Learn how to build businesses and cultures that support not just the financials, but intellectual and physical well-being of everybody involved. That to me, as a note that I had on you, really was something that spoke to me, because I think, look, folks, it's all about the bottom right, as we used to say in the Marine Corps. That's where the final numbers are on the numbers are on the P&L, bottom right, and what matters. But tell me a little bit about your career path and how you got to where you are right now.
So I would expect that you're going to find this somewhat interesting. So I was going into the restaurant business. That was my plan, to go in the restaurant business. My dad had some Applebee's. Like, we had the franchise rights for all of the Gulf states for Applebee's at one point in time.
Oh, wow.
And we got rid of those, and we ended up with a couple of Applebee's, one in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we converted those. We got rid of the franchise, and we converted those restaurants to calendars, which has the same number of letters as Applebee's, and we couldn't afford to change the sign. So that was easy. Calendars became a pretty good thing. So my brother and I, and my brother cranked it up, and then I left the Zippy's Pizza operation in Austin and moved to Baton Rouge and enrolled in college. And I was going to kind of focus on college and start to work on a career in the restaurant industry, which is the only thing I ever had any interest in doing. And so I got cranking in that, and that's sort of how I cut my teeth in business. And I was able to do it very much from an entrepreneur's perspective, because I had the latitude that you can get inside of a family business, both in terms to be held accountable at a higher level and able to take on more responsibility. And so as long as I kept those things in balance, I was able to expand sort of, how much responsibility I had within the operation, which, kind of rose pretty quickly. And it's funny, as I was thinking about you and I's conversation this morning, along the journey of my career, I have always said everything I learned in the restaurant business. And then over the years, and there's a pretty deep story there, because I actually sort of implemented a strategy that was purely a kitchen strategy in technology. But over the years, I kind of backed away from that. Like, okay, it's just business. And then this morning I was thinking, I'm more solid on this today than I ever have been. It's a 45-minute economy with the customer, and all of the stuff that goes on in the hand-to-hand combat of customer service, whether that's big enterprise software sales, or whether that's sort of mid-ranged point of sale systems, or whether it's sort of recurring revenue. I was in IT security for a while, a cloud business. A lot of it, the things that you encounter in the interaction with a customer are the same. They just happen high frequency and really fast in restaurants. And then the way that a kitchen functions, okay, what happens is stuff comes in the back and it goes through some type of value creation, and then tickets come in, and the time it takes you to process them is either getting shorter or longer or shorter. You're either getting better or not. And then there's a lot of communication that happens inside of a restaurant. So if you're in a restaurant, for instance, and the ice in the ice bin in the back is empty, and they don't, in a lot of cases, they don't make ice into the ice bin. You put it in a bucket and you fill up the ice bin. Well, when it's empty and there's 20 people running around, someone needs to fill it up. And the way that happens very organically is someone says, we need ice in the ice bin. And inevitably someone says, I've got the ice. And then everyone else can go back and keep their head down and stay focused. And that happens in restaurants really fast. Well, when I first got it, and so that's what I started my career doing. I was in the restaurant business, and I had big plans to go on and do that. We opened several other places. We had success. Video poker got legalized in Louisiana. So, there was a decent amount of money coming in. And then in 1995, one of my employees came through the back door on a Sunday morning with a gun and shot and killed a manager, a 21-year-old girl named Stephanie Gazzardo. I loved her dearly, still do.
Oh my God.
Killed her in my office, and then he came in, he shot a bartender, our bartender. This is on a Sunday morning before Thanksgiving. Shot a bartender in the back, killed Stephanie in the office, and then killed a fry cook named David Breckwell. So it's 10:30 in the morning. I just closed the night before, and I get a phone call from the state police. And so I get up in the morning and I raced to Calendar's restaurant.
Was he an employee?
Yeah, Todd Wesslinger. I knew him. I knew his cousin. These were insanely intelligent African-American kids with not much hope in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but super talented. He worked for me. I mean, I could tell you that he's on death row in Angola today. Todd Wesslinger. I could talk to him. I mean, I didn't. I never did. But I got that phone call in 1995, and so. And I'd been married for a short period of time, and I went and intellectually at that point in time. So that's a whole long story.
Yeah, that's a whole story in and of itself. Gosh.
But intellectually, I knew that I needed to get out of that business at that point in time, and so I began the process, and I ended up opening another restaurant. But I began the process of moving into a new career. But over the course of that, just a bit of a sidebar. After the murders on Perkins Road, I had to recover that restaurant. And so if you think about what you do when you go to a restaurant, the parking lot is lit so that you feel safe. Like, you don't want to be looking over your shoulder. Then the other thing is, I had to get employees back to work. So it was very much a crisis management kind of thing. And so what I sort of learned that, and I'm sure in the Marine Corps, you have a similar thing. If you want to get people to perform and you want to get people on task and moving, they can't be worried about, they have to feel safe and focused. And so what sort of started as something, very, very terrible. And, I had to clean that mess up. So it definitely stayed with me. I was the first one on the scene. It was a very traumatic sort of situation that happened, it kind of happened to me. Well, but when I left there, and so that's kind of how I learned. But over time in business, what sort of happened was, things kind of mellowed a bit, and I got a little older, and I took the same, that same sort of intense fabric of people need to feel safe. They need to be able to speak their mind. They need to know that, they're not, no one's going to grab their ass, if you will, and, or punch them in the face, whatever. And then they need to feel like they're in a safe place financially. People don't want to get surprised. And so I got into technology and sort of moved into a completely different career. Started with, I got into technology sales, and then moved and opened an office for that business here in Houston, Texas, and then got in the private equity thing. And we did some acquisitions early on with a business called VeriCenter. And we scaled that business up and sold it to a company called SunGuard. And then the CEO and I took over a business called Alert Logic, which went on to become a pretty good size player in the cloud security space. And then I did pretty well along the journey there. I made some money. And so I was in between gigs when the point of sale opportunity popped up. And I thought, how cool is this going to be? I can chill out a little bit. The money's not as interesting as it used to be. And I've got an opportunity to sort of go back to my roots and do this restaurant deal. And it started really as I'm going to go in, I'm going to run this business, I'm going to hire a CEO, put some stuff together, and then I'm going to go, get on with my career. And I ended up sticking around for 4 years. I did hire, worked with the PE folks, but got a CEO put in, a guy named Perry Turvis, and we built the team and built that business up. That's where I was running through all the pizzerias. And then along the way, I got to Bigleaf. So the connection between this sort of later part of my career is I get to Hunger Rush, which was kind of the third or fourth business that I was involved in. Well, I was selling to restaurants, and I thought that was super cool. The pandemic hit us, and then the move to online ordering, and then the percentage of overall to-go food, and all of those things really kind of started. It was like lightning in a bottle. So the timing of Hunger Rush was you always want to have
right on spot, huh?
Yeah, okay, yeah. A little luck never hurts. And so, but while I was in it, I recognized that the connectivity element, so the last mile for internet access, is super, super important. So if you're a small pizzeria and your business is dependent on online ordering, and you're dependent on a crummy circuit sitting in a strip center in Timbuktu, you need a product that's going to allow you to have a quality experience across that, plus perhaps a wireless network. So what Bigleaf does is provide connectivity across multiple circuits. So a satellite circuit, a wireless LTE or 5G circuit, and a wired circuit, which essentially allows people to do business on the internet without interruption. So think of like a dermatology image. That would be a highly sensitive thing that needs to work well.
Gotcha.
And no matter what happens. And so that's the business that we're in. Really, it's the B2B2C part. It's like where the business and the consumer, I call it the distribution endpoint. We're just trying to make sure that connection, is always up and always available and always function. So you can schedule getting your hair cut.
Well, you've brought up a couple of things that from the entrepreneurial side that I find very interesting. And folks, if you don't know what a private equity is, I'm going to do my best to explain it. Think of these as outside companies that they come in and they find a company that's probably already up and running. They might be in a funding stage, or they just finished their funding, and they come in with a lot of money. They could be an older company, but they're going to come in with a whole lot of money. They're going to buy it. They're going to mold it to its next entity, probably keep it for somewhere around 3 to 5 years. Really, they don't want them for no longer than that. And then they're going to drop it off to somebody else, that somebody else is going to buy it at a much higher markup than what they bought it at. Is that a pretty good Reader's Digest version?
That's so awesome. I tend to make it more romantic when I lay it out there for you, but just if you get down to the meat and potatoes, you're spot on.
Yeah, that's the Reader's Digest version of that entire thing. But what's interesting to me is you've had a lot of entrepreneurial experience, even though you're working for a PE, which is a corporation. You have still found a way to kind of be what I call an entrepreneur, where you're inside of a business making a business. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So the private equity. So take Bigleaf for instance. Bigleaf raised money to get on with its life. So there's multiple PE firms that are in it. So I don't really work. I don't really work for the PE firms. I'm hired by the PE firms, but I work for the businesses, and and for all practical purposes, I'm literally just an employee. So I'm an operator. I come in and very much I'm in I'm taking the business from where it is and putting it in position to be able to capture the opportunity that it deserves, if you will. So a lot of times founders get in business, they sort of run out of steam. The business has more energy in it than they do, or
to emotionally
running a business with 100 people is complicated.
Yes.
And you have to deal with a whole lot of things other than product management.
It's a different animal.
It's a different animal.
And look, folks, we're talking with Greg Davis, CEO of Bigleaf Networks. He is a highly experienced, we'll call it what it is. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's done those things multiple times in the restaurant industry. He's helped other businesses. If you want to talk to Greg, reach out to him. You can find him on LinkedIn under Greg Davis. You can just find him right there on LinkedIn. It's scrolling along the bottom, Greg Davis, spelled just like it sounds. There's nothing creative about it. You don't have to figure out no weird way of spelling his name or nothing like that. It's very simple. But if you're interested in what Greg's got going on, reach out to him on LinkedIn. One of the things I want to ask you, because a lot of people want to know about that entrepreneurial side. And it sounds like for you and your family, it was always a thing. It was always part of the DNA of your household. Your brother was running something, your dad was running something. They had big name partners, things of that nature. What was it like for you? Or probably a better question is what are some of the things when people come to you and say, hey, Greg, you've done all these things, or you've been involved in these PEs that have helped scale businesses. When somebody says, hey, I've been doing this thing, because I hate the word side hustle. I just want you to know that. I hate that phrase. I think it's stupid. It's called a second job. That's what you have. You have two jobs. You don't have a side hustle, because side hustle just sounds like you're reaching into the criminal element to me.
That's so funny. Yeah. No side hustle.
If I told you I was a hustler back in the day, you'd be like, I gotta keep my distance.
I wouldn't trust a hustler.
Right. But all of a sudden it's okay to be like, I got a side hustle.
Yeah.
So are you selling dope out the back door? What are we doing here?
This is the product of the distributed workforce, which I have and I have to deal with, but it's not the same. And the pandemic was very, very hard on a part of the workforce, and they're going to have a hard time getting their head back in the game. But one way or another, it's going to happen.
But what do you tell that person when they're like, hey, I think I can take this second job or this other thing I'm doing out of my home, and I think I can scale it to be a full-time piece for me? What are some of the advice that you give those folks?
Well, look, the main advice that I give people, and I give this frequently, is that there is no way to find what you're looking for if you're not sure what it is. So it's really important that like, this is what I want to go do. And that takes things out. Then there are no side hustles. It's a sequence of events. And you may have to incubate one thing. I do that. I was on the board at Bigleaf while I was working on the Hunger Rush project. And as we started to wind down Hunger Rush, I took over day-to-day operations of Bigleaf. It wasn't a side hustle. It was a logical progression of what I was trying to do through the lens that I had on me and my career and what I wanted to do with my goals. And so I think the key thing for anyone is you need to know what it is that you're looking for, and you should spend some time, and you deserve to spend some time thinking that through. Like, this is, and not to get sort of soupy, but I deserve, and I'm sort of worthy of putting my cards on the table and saying, hey, here's the path for me. And shit, I didn't do that till I was in my late 40s probably, or at least didn't feel that way.
Well, something you just said, you were on the board over at Bigleaf, but you weren't running the show or something like that. I try to explain this to people all the time. When I went and decided that I guess what, folks? I own the budget blinds. I think I've said that a many a time, but they're mine. I own two franchise territories. But when I was getting ready to do that, that was a question that constantly came up for me was, well, are you going to run this or are you going to have somebody else run it? Are you going to run this or is somebody else going to do it? And I constantly felt like man can't serve two masters. I have to run my business till I know it's up and running and I know the operation. Then I can hand it to somebody else. What's your like? I hear these again, the side hustle thing. What do you know? Is that what you're saying? Like, hey, you've got to be committed to this thing, or it's never going to be your thing.
So, well, look, controversy aside, look at Elon Musk. He's doing what he wants to do, but he's
Right.
running. I have no idea how that guy does what he does in terms of being that dialed into the details, on the cuff, and responsive to that many businesses at the same time. But he's doing what it is that he wants to do, and I think on a different scale, everyone everyone should have the opportunity to do that. Know what it is that you're looking for, and then the biggest thing beyond that is don't be in one place and hoping that you're in another. If you want to go pick up the side, something in.
Oh no, Greg, what's going on with your internet?
What's
Greg,
that?
I'm losing. You're getting choppy on me like we were talking about before.
Oh, really?
I heard if you want to pick up something, and then I lost you there.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, Sean. How you got me now?
I got you now.
I was just, I not sure where I chopped out on you, but basically what I was saying is you need to know what it is, know what it is that you're looking for, and then go pursue that thing. If you want to pick up something, on the side, or pick up something in parallel, then do that. Don't be in one place and wish that you were in another, is the point I was making.
I get that completely. Now, one of the other things that kind of comes up, and I don't know how you did it in your businesses. I know how I did it with my business, but I think the biggest what people perceive as a barrier is funding. Now, you operate currently in a world where funding is everything. You're not asking for, hey guys, can I get a $50,000 loan? You're in that funding world of Schedule C's, and folks, look that up. I'm not going to explain a Schedule A, B, and C, and I learned it the hard way talking to other people and then having to read about it. You go read about it too, but you're in that higher end funding now. But what is some of the advice that you give to people as far as, hey, if they think that this, they're going to get into that entrepreneurial space, they're going to open a restaurant and they're like, hey, I'm going to do this. Because I think restaurants are one of those ones. We all think we have the best fried chicken or grilled cheese sandwich in the world. But what are some of the things, and maybe we'll just focus on that for a minute because you know that world so well. If somebody was looking into that restaurant world, what's some of the advice you give them as far as funding and things of that nature?
So a couple of things. So are you familiar with Raising Cane's?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Todd Graves, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I watched that thing come together. A plan to be what he is today when he and Craig Sylvie opened the first restaurant in Baton Rouge. I remember it well. We those of us that were in the restaurant community in Baton Rouge at the time were amazed at the degree to which they were thinking through what they were going to do with that business. And it happened, Dr. Hill, a wealthy guy in Baton Rouge, recognized that they had they were wired tight and had a good plan, helped them scale, and they were on their way. So the lesson there is have a plan. If you're flying by the seat of your pants and you're starting to piddle around in the waters of institutional money, you're going to get your clock cleaned. Because
what do you mean?
Well, if you don't have a good solid plan, and then you're going to be asking for money in amounts that are smaller than what you probably need. And if you end up, if you can't cash flow your business and you end up in a situation where you're repeatedly going back to the well, that's a bad situation. That's how people, kind of lose control of their companies and get diluted. So the first thing for anyone that's starting a business, if you don't need to raise money from venture capital or private equity, then you shouldn't do that. You should maintain control of your business. If you have a great idea and it's working, in particular, and you can acquire customers with this thing, in particular with software, then these markets, both on the venture capital side and private equity, can be, and debt for that matter, they can help you scale your business and do things that you couldn't otherwise do. To your point, these private equity funds in a lot of cases are raising money from large pensions. They have billions of dollars. And so, $20-30 million to a small company is a lot. To some of these folks, it's a rounding error. However, they treat every penny as though it's the most, as they should, as it's the most important thing, and they don't pay very well.
Oh, really?
The people I work with, I love my folks, but in general, people think, oh, you work, you're an operator in private equity, no, it's kind of the opposite of that. You work more like in an entrepreneur structure. You work for equity in the business, and you make a reasonable, but these CEO jobs, these aren't $1 million a year jobs and the crazy things that you hear about. I'm sure some are, but certainly not the waters I swim in.
But you know what, you bring up a great point about the funding side of it, the money side of it. If you can avoid that, heavy debt, but that to me is funny, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I've always been, and I can see the guy's face, and I can't think of his name. He's one of these ones that owns like more real estate than he knows what to do with, and he's like the yin to doggone Robert Kiyosaki's yang. Like Kiyosaki's the guy who's like, more and more debt, have debt. That's a good thing. And this guy's like, if you can avoid it, do things this way. But I'm always curious of people's opinion of debt, because kind of all the research I've done is I'm of the mindset, if you want to give me a loan for $1 million, I'll take it. And I'll start something else with it, and I'll grow that debt. And you want to give me another $1 million, I'll keep taking it from you, because eventually my goal is to be so big that I'm that Ford, that GM. I'm so big you can't afford for me to fail, so you'll find ways to help me. That's always been my mindset.
Yeah, I would not. Look, I'm just wrapping up a debt.
Yeah, please.
Literally as we chat. So I think debt. Look, debt is all about flexibility and how much you're willing to pay for. How much do you need, and what are you willing to pay? The more flexibility that you want, the more that you're going to pay for that debt. In general, and I think debt is awesome. If you have $1 in your pocket, you can borrow 2 against it, is what my father used to say. So hanging on to your cat, you can do a lot with that. For where and different businesses need different things at different times. There are times, in my past at Alert Logic, I think there were times in 2012 when we sold it the first time, it didn't make any sense for us to have debt in the business. So we did everything with equity, which for your audience and your listeners, that's we basically we sold parts of the business to help fund the growth, and that was the right thing for us to do at the time. For the business that I'm in right now, we're in a little bit of a different structure. We're debt works for us because we're kind of just getting to that point where the business is starting to get some lift, and we just need sort of a bridge to make it through a short-term period, and debt's cheaper than equity. So I think the situation is it differs depending on what the needs of the individual business what the individual business is. But I would never I kind of feel a little bit differently than you do on that. If you can bootstrap your business and you don't have to take any outside money, that's the way to go. And everyone I know that's done that for more than 7 years is doing just fine. It's hard, but if you can hang in there and do it, it's great. It's difficult. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to start.
No, and see that's why I love these conversations, because your experience as an entrepreneur is way higher end than mine is as a newer entrepreneur. I'm looking at it going, Well, look, man, if you're going to give it to me, I'll make things happen with it. But when it's all said and done, just know that like I'm gonna do my best to give you your money back, Air Bank.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. Bank. And folks, we're getting close. We're already. Gosh, I didn't even realize what the time we were already at there, Greg. It's getting close to closing the bar. If you
Oh,
want to
man.
talk to Greg, make sure you click on. You can find him on LinkedIn under Greg Davis on LinkedIn. He's a ruggedly handsome man.
You're telling me.
you know, that's what I used to tell people. I'm ruggedly handsome. They're like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "You ever seen a Chinese Shar-Pei?" You know,
Nice.
I'm still cute, even though I got a scrunchy face. But you'll see him under there. He's the CEO of Bigleaf Networks. You can check out what he's got. He's owned many restaurants. He understands about scaling. So make sure, and for those of you that are finding Greg through me and me through Greg, please make sure you're sharing this. You're giving those likes, those follows. It is that important. This is how all of our networks grow. So what are some of the, in your experience, and I want to stay with the restaurant thing for a minute, Greg, like I have a restaurant idea in my head that you're going to appreciate in a minute. Me and you are probably from the only two areas in America that will appreciate this idea.
Oh, lay it on me.
Because you and I are from the only two areas in America where this summer treat exists and the cities fight about who created it first. You know what that is?
No.
The snowball.
You know what? I almost said the snowball. And it's just such a New Orleans classic.
But it's such a Baltimore classic.
Well, listen, my next door neighbor here, we were just talking about this the other day, had one of the classic, I forget the name of it, the ones that were manufactured in New Orleans, the classic snowballs.
So
Plum Street snowballs in New Orleans. So I didn't do the Baltimore thing, but Plum Street snowballs in New Orleans was the freaking bomb. They served them in these Chinese containers.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Exactly. So everybody's sitting around on Plum Street, sitting on the curb, eating snowballs, and they're not cones, as you well know, balls.
Oh, snowball, and it for us it was styrofoam cup, fluff or not. Did you have fluff in yours?
No, no. My wife Holly, she's still a fan. There's like Bahama Breeze or some kind of place like that. That sort of they're just close enough. But no,
that's that Hawaiian shaved ice thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I was cherry snowball,
sky blue.
Oof, man, I love. Yeah, I can jam on some snowballs.
But you know what the big thing in Baltimore though is egg custard. That is the flavor is egg custard.
Yeah. I never.
It was invented in Baltimore. That's where that flavor was created. That's true was made there. But we put fluff on ours.
Interesting.
Marshmallow fluff, and as I explained to my wife, I need somebody's dirty thumb to be stuck in the top of it to make a hole, so that's where the juice goes.
Yeah. So our fluff was condensed milk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the New Orleans classic. Totally.
Oh man, see, Baltimore, it's the snowball with marshmallow fluff, and if it's real high end, it's the ice, a squirt, fluff, ice, a squirt, and then ice, and then finish it off with another squirt. Nice. That's the super high, and we've got some places that now do soft serve in the middle of them.
That's so yeah.
But that brings me to my question. And see, Greg, I told you you're going to be my best friend before this is all over with, because I want to talk about when people are looking to start a food business. What are some of, because like I said, I think everybody's got a food idea. They think that their grandma's sauce was the greatest that they ever had, but it's built on nostalgia. It has no real legs to it.
Yeah, I'm probably am the worst person to ask because I just feel like the deck is stacked so against the single, startup. I'm going to be the mom and pop shop. And I love those restaurants, but they're just getting hit on everything. Now, that being said, I think there's some concepts that are highly scalable and that you could really do some cool things. So online ordering, loyalty, and what you can do with delivery, if you can create a quality experience, and I think that's a big if. So if I was So I'm probably going to go too far with this answer. I'd be very cautious in opening a restaurant because you have a good idea, and I would just be really cautious on that. But if you could think it through and vertically integrate every aspect of it. This is how we're going to market and scale marketing. This is how we're going to package. Jason's Deli did a really good job of coming up with a good way to sell to-go food. And
I don't know what that is. What about the ghost kitchen? What do you think about that for the?
I think some of the stuff that Denny's was doing was pretty cool. But if you think about that Denny's was basically running different multiple concepts out of the back of their kitchens, and so they're basically running ghost kitchens out of Denny's. They're just getting more leverage on those facilities. I think
Denny that was changing the name, like you
100%.
thought you were going to you were getting it from here, but it was really just a Denny's.
Yeah, exactly. Or it was called, Hamburger Joe's, whatever, and it was and you could order it online. It was coming from Denny's. Yeah, I think that's a smart move for them. I think I think there's a lot of very cool opportunities. There's a place called Fajita Pete's that's out there is a good concept to look at. Small footprint, tight scalable to go platform, food that holds. I think you got to think about the kind of the contemporary buyer, and look, labor is expensive, man. So online ordering, and the ability to harness that and digital transactions, that's where the action is. It doesn't really, look, great pizza is great pizza, but if you want to scale and make money, that's not necessarily where the action is.
Yeah.
What's
funny, you mentioned the labor piece. I educate people real quick. Nate says Google says Snowball started in Baltimore. He went and Googled it. I just want you to know that. This is for some reason Louisiana and Maryland have like this thing. It's the seafood. It's the snowballs. I don't understand it.
That's so
I think it's because we're both in swampy ass areas.
Yeah, and sugar, right? Didn't Imperial Sugar? What sugar?
Domino's. We're Domino's. Yeah, Domino's is right there. So you guys had Imperial, we had Domino's. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Imperial's here in Sugarland, Texas. That right where I am here in Houston.
But and Nate just threw me off because I was thinking about that. But with a lot of these different restaurant concepts, a lot of what your experience are, and what my experience has been the franchise side to things. What are your thoughts, one versus the other, for somebody who's looking to get into that entrepreneurial space?
So I like the franchise model. We were talking about Chick-fil-A earlier. I mean, they obviously have a great model. I think I don't know if Todd and those guys are still doing franchises, but I think they had a great model. Their franchisees were happy. I love the Hungry Howie's team up there in Detroit. Again, I don't eat a whole lot of pizza, but they have, I think they have a great franchise model. So I think, and then look, there's it sounds like you have a blind franchise. There's things like Perspire. There was a really cool business called Safe Splash. They were selling franchises. It was brilliant, man. It was they were doing swimming lessons. Go out to a town, put a pool with a shed over it, and get thousands of subscribers, and run that for 20 years, and then tear it down and put a supermarket there. And just all over Denver, they scaled that business up, and that was a rocking business. Safe Splash.
That's a new one.
So I think I like, and there's so much technology, but if I was, buying a franchise, I would be, I'd be early in. I think the Dogtopia people really cleaned up. I think that was a pretty good deal for a lot of folks. I wouldn't want to do that. I love dogs, but I think there's action there. You need to find good folks that have a great reputation, and some franchisors that are going to work their ass off for you. That's important too.
That's huge right there.
Yeah.
I love, I love my franchise. I love what I do. I was just telling someone today, where else could you have a business where people, not only do they invite me into their home, you invite me into the most intimate places in your home. Like, hey, come in my bedroom and measure for my windows.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of businesses where you're comfortable enough to, heck, I've had people in my business that go, hey, I'm not going to be home. Here's the code to my door. Go ahead and put my windows in. We'll see you when we get there. Like,
Yeah, I have some relationships like that. I have a relationship like that with my plumber. It's
see,
all,
but once you find that person that you feel that trustworthy with, it's a huge piece. And look, folks, we're getting ready to close things up here. Nate, if you're still out there, I still haven't seen your question pop up. Nate normally has some food related question for everybody, but I
yeah.
can't believe that.
On that note, if I like plumbing franchise, they have to be out there like that kind of
They
thing.
are. Roto-Rooters are franchises.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Rooter.
that's right. I think there's the trades are where it's at.
I say that all the time.
I do too, and I think people are just sort of jabberjawing about it, but it's literally true.
So, completely sidebar, we had a guy running for governor here locally. He was from the Libertarian Party. I can't think of his name right now. It's escaping me. But you want to talk about a genius idea? He was like, "Hey, we're going to take all the New York schools. It'll take us a couple years to do it, but we're going to stop school in 10th grade. That'll be when you graduate. There's no reason for all these study halls and all this extra stuff. But when they graduate at 10th grade, we will give them, similar to the GI Bill, a $20,000 a year stipend to either go to a prep school, which would be like 11th and 12th grade,
Yeah,
to directly go into college and have $40,000 to go to college with, to go to a trade school, and it was something like 5 or 6 years after they graduate to use it, because maybe some kid just thinks they can go right into the workforce at 16. And he's like, this is Larry Sharp was his name. And he goes, this is the concepts. And people were like, oh, that's crazy. Why give them $20,000? Well, that's because here in New York, we spend $33,000 a year average on students to go to school. So we just saved ourselves $13,000 a year per kid. So you can lower taxes. The other thing he said was, we can train all these trades. Well, we don't have these trade schools. He goes, exactly. So now we just created an entire industry where the entire country now has to come to New York to find their tradesmen. We have an entire industry where people are coming out of school, where they've been taught how to work, they've been taught how to trade, they've been taught how to do these things, and the entire country will have to come to New York for their tradesmen. And we're a very, very pro-union state. And I was like, that's genius to me.
Well, I can't get into it, but it's been a pro-union couple of weeks for me.
It's been a pro-union. I was in the union for many, many years, but it was a very, pro-union move. And I'm like, look, and for a libertarian to push a pro-union move is very unlibertarian. But it was like, yeah.
These unions have a lot of money, and they invest those money in private equity funds, and those private equity funds, I end up in things like that. So those unions do a really good job of looking out for their members. They really do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people don't realize all the stuff that a good union will do for them. Well, look, we're going to get ready to close this up. I'll ask Nate's question. I can't believe Nate didn't ask his question. So Nate would have probably asked you this. Since you're in Houston, I'll go with that. We talked a little bit about it before the show. What would you say is, if somebody was headed to Houston, what is the go-to restaurant meal that they've got to have when they get there?
Wow. There's a couple of barbecues, what I would say. Pit Room Barbecue.
Is that the name of the place? Pit Room?
Yeah, Pit Room. It's off the hook. Like it's unbelievable. Like big beef ribs, brisket, Pit Room. However, this is a Tex-Mex town. And if you haven't had like the original Memphis fajitas, that's something to do. And then if you come to Houston and then there's two big sort of core things. One is we have an incredible relationship between the Indians and the Pakistanis. And so there's a whole area of town where you
really?
Oh yeah, totally. Like Himalaya. Anthony Bourdain did a scene there. He's like, this is the only place on earth these people get along. And so we and I happen to be, close friends with a couple of Indian guys that have turned me on to a bunch of cool areas there. So that's one scene. And then you've got the Viet Cajun scene. So, you need to, cover some ground. And if I was, sending you to my favorite restaurant, I would send you to Cultivar, which is none of those things here in Houston. So,
what's Cultivar? What am I getting there?
Cultivar, it's think of neighborhood Italian, but it's farm to table off the hook. It's a top notch restaurant by any standards. The menu changes. There's a lot of that in Houston. This is worth coming to check out. But you can't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm all about it. Well, look, folks, I hope you like what Greg had to say. If you're looking to start a business, and again, reach out to Greg. If you're looking in that food space, you're looking in that PE space. If you're looking to see what things are going on, reaching out to him on LinkedIn, Greg Davis. Greg, I think we probably could have done about another hour and still not skipped a beat here. Absolutely.
I was sipping on my 10-cup whiskey here out of my.
What are you? Oh, you're drinking 10 cup?
I am, yeah. A buddy of mine actually sells that whiskey. Nick Conover in Vail, Colorado.
If you get a chance, I highly recommend Smoke Wagon. This is one I've been checking out.
Nice.
Uncut, unfiltered Smoke Wagon.
Right on. I'll have to check it out. Sean, it was great meeting you, man. Much appreciated.
Absolutely a pleasure, brother. Look, any upcoming speaking gigs, anything like that coming up where somebody might find you?
No, we're going to be at the Blair CEO conference, but other than that, you can find me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at gdavis@bigleaf.net.
Well, look, folks, make sure you're giving him like follows. If you found me through Greg or Greg through me, make sure that like, follow, share. It might sound cliche, like you're watching one of your kids' videos where like, share, follow. Listen, I don't care. It's important to us. This is how our messages get out. Now, Greg, before I let you go, and don't log off afterwards, that you got to stay on. We're going to talk for half a minute afterwards. And I know you watch some of the other episodes, so hopefully you're prepared for this. The guest always gets the final word. So what's the final word for tonight, Greg?
Cheers.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.